have a presentation by our guest speaker, Jessie. She's a former early college student, recent graduate of UNC Chapel Hill. I'm very excited to introduce her to you and to have her speak to you today. So listen up for all of the exciting information she has, and she'll also offer you the opportunity to ask questions if you like. So we welcome Jessie. Very excited to have her here today. Thank you, Jessie.
How y'all doing today? Good. Just out of curiosity, what's my grade level in here? Like 9th, 10th, 11th, what? 11th? Okay. All right. So a little bit about me. As Ms. Battle said, I was here from 2005 to 2010. I was one of the members of the first class that was ever here, and I was valedictorian of both classes. I did not ask to be, I did not plan to be, it just worked out that way, so I'm excited about that. And as she said, I was accepted to UNC Chapel Hill in 2010, and I was awarded a full scholarship, and I just graduated in December with a Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology with a history minor. Okay, so one of the first things people ask me, in general, when I tell them about my high school experience is, why did you choose to do the early college? Why did you choose Nash? And there was really three main reasons that I chose to do Nash. The first one was that I didn't feel particularly challenged in my middle school environment. I went to Southern Nash Middle. They taught the curriculum. I did the work. Very rarely did I have homework at night. I was able to do all my classwork and homework at school. And I wanted something more. I wanted to be challenged. I wanted to be pushed out of my comfort zone and see what else I could do. So that was one of the main reasons I chose to come here. And when I did choose to come here, it definitely did push me out of my comfort zone. The other thing that I wanted college prep. In 8th grade, I knew then that I wanted to go to college. Neither one of my parents had gone to college. They had their high school diploma, but they hadn't gotten a full 4-year degree, and I knew then that I was smart enough and I was willing to do the work, and I wanted to go to college. So I wanted a program that would prepare me for college, and I thought that this program was the best fit for my interests. The only drawback for me really was that there were no extracurricular activities like sports or band or chorus, but in the big picture I thought my education was more important, and so I chose to apply and see what happened. And I obviously got in, which was really exciting. And my third reason for choosing the early college is a bit more of a personal one. I have a disability. More specifically, I have cerebral palsy. So when you're in middle school, it's a tough time. You're changing schools, you're changing in age, you're just changing all over, and kids can be mean. And since I was a bit different than my peers, I was the target. A lot of my peers, they would say that they were helping me, like take books from one class to the other, and they did, but the main reason they did that was not so that they could help me, it was so that they could get out of class 5 or 10 minutes early so that they didn't have to listen to a teacher teach. I had students, since I was one of the top students in my class, they thought that, well, she's smart and she's a little bit different than us, so we can use her to get her homework done. We can copy her work. We can steal her ideas. And so I just would have to fight on a daily basis, between that and people wanting to copy off my work or my homework. And I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. I mean, not everybody was like that, of course. It was only a few. But I wanted something different, and I didn't want to spend 4 more years with the same people. I wanted a new environment and a new group of people. And so that was the 3 main reasons I wanted to come here. And once I came here, I realized that this really was the best fit for me, and I was super, super blessed that I was able to come here and stay here for the 5 years that I was here. Oh, and one other thing, if you have questions or comments, please don't hesitate to interrupt me. So another question is like, what did I like about the program other than why did I want to come here? Well, the first main reason the first thing I liked about the program was the small size. We were the first program. They took 36 students and they split us into two groups of 18. We were Group A and Group B. Group A would do something in the morning and Group B would do something, and then we would switch and do what the other group had done. And so I really liked that, and because we were such a small size and in such small groups, we were able to have one-on-one time with the professors if we needed it, which was really crucial. Along with that, the faculty was great. The only person that's left from the original group of teachers that was here when I was here is Ms. Davis. Everybody else has gone on to do other things, and so I don't know any of the faculty quite as well, but I'm sure they're just as stellar as the faculty was when I was here. We had English teachers, history teachers, math teachers, science teachers, you name it, and we had it, and they were good at what they did, and they wanted us to succeed. We were the first group, so when you have a first group like this, in a program like this, if your first group doesn't do well, then it's highly unlikely that you'll get any further groups since it was a test. They didn't know if it would work. So the teachers wanted us to succeed. They got to know us personally as individuals, and they made themselves available to us as needed. They listened to our thoughts and our concerns, and they acted on them. If we had a problem, they did their best to fix it. And we were also, like I said, we were able to have one-on-one time with them. And the way education is these days, it truly is a commodity that not many people get. So this might seem silly or obvious, but another thing I liked about the program was the fact that you get to take actual college classes on an actual college campus versus AP classes where you take it in high school and you have to take an exam to pass and get credit. It kind of gave me an insight into what college would really be like, what professors expected, what the workload would be like. And, I mean, you get an associate's degree at the end of it. I would be a college graduate, and there's a lot of statistics that say it's hard for first-generation college students, which is what I was, to actually become a college graduate. And so by getting my associate's degree, I beat that. I became a college graduate. And the last thing I really liked about the program was I liked the AVID program. It seemed like overkill at times, the things that they asked us to do. I was like, you know, divide your paper and write down these things and get the main points and the supporting details and all these other things from a lecture. And it seemed like there wasn't any point to it, but there was. When I went to college, I was able to time manage and study effectively because I knew how to take effective notes. These things are a key to success when you're at a university. UNC requires 10 pages of writing per class per semester. So if you're in 4 or 5 classes, that's 40 to 50 pages of writing. And by being in the AVID program, it taught us how to write and how to take notes, and that was key for me to be able to graduate on time. And also, you know, you're in high school, you know what it's like. You get an assignment that you don't really like to do, but you have to do it anyway. And another thing that this program taught me was that teachers won't give you an assignment unless they feel it's beneficial. And it's those assignments that I didn't really want to do at the time, but I did them anyway, that I'm so thankful for, because they gave me the foundation I needed to do well when I went to Carolina. So what were my challenges? The workload. I know I said I wanted a challenge when I came here, but boy, did they go above and beyond when it came to that in challenges. I went from having no homework at night to having 2 or 3 hours of homework every night. And when you're in 4 or 5 classes, that's a lot of work. And you have to be committed to it. It's almost like being told to go to the deep end of a pool and jump in, and you've never seen water. You're like, what? You want me to do what? And it was just overwhelming. But like I've said, the teachers were there for us, and they listened to us and what we needed. For example, I have a story I want to tell. I don't think any of y'all are freshmen, but when I was a freshman, I came about this close to dropping out. because of the workload. It was that hard. Our middle schools might have taught the curriculum, but they didn't necessarily teach it well. So I was in ninth grade English, and we had a teacher. Her name was Ann Malia, and she was teaching us grammar, and she was flying through it, and she was giving us this really difficult, long homework every night, and we were coming back and not having it done. Like, I would come to school and I would almost be crying as I'm driving around the drive around the S&T building because I didn't want to come back to school because I didn't have my homework done. And she would get furious with us for not having our work done because we were the type of students that just wasn't acceptable. But she didn't understand that we hadn't been taught what she thought we had been taught. So we went to Miss Davis and we said, look, and it was a good portion of my class, it wasn't just me. We said, look, this is what she's expected of us. It's not that we don't want to do the work, it's just that we don't understand because we weren't taught what she thinks we were taught. So Miss Davis goes and talks to Miss Malia, explains the situation, she talks to us. She went back and taught the whole unit on grammar, every single bit of it, and slowed it down and explained to us what she wanted and how she wanted it, and we did our homework, and she didn't yell at us again. So it's things like that, that even though it's a challenge, you've got the faculty here that will help you. Another challenge, so that was the workload and keeping up part, and the final part was taking care of myself. As a result of all the work and everything, I had a real big problem when it came to being tired. I had 2 major orthopedic surgeries when I was in high school. One was in 2007, one was in 2009. I had to take a semester off and be homeschooled and to do that, and my teachers came and did that for me. But when you are trying to recover from major surgery on top of doing your classwork, something's got to give. And sleep was what gave for me. I didn't sleep like I should have, but I've always had the motto, every education is like one of the most important things you could have. So my education was always more important than myself. If I had a choice between going to school and doing my work or getting an extra hour of sleep, I would do the work. But it was really hard being tired and getting my work done. But like I said, I had support, I had my family, I had the faculty, and they were there for me when I needed it. But that was by far my biggest struggle, was just having enough energy to get through the day, get through the week, get through the month, get through the semester, until the next one or until the next break. So one of my other reasons, college prep. How did the early college prepare me for college at UNC? Time management. Whether you're in high school like you guys and you're taking 5 classes and 4 of them are high school and 1's college, or vice versa, 1 is high school and 4 college, you have to be able to manage your time. And you have to be able to allocate time to your classes based on what's your hardest class, what's your medium class, what's your easier classes. Because if you don't time manage, you're going to end up putting everything off to the end or missing something and not getting anything done. I understand procrastination. I've been there, I've done that. Don't do it if you can avoid it. It just puts more stress on you, and it's not your best work. I've seen people in college, they'll put an 10-page paper off 2 days before it's due, and then they'll sit down, pull 2 all-nighters to get it done, and then the next time I see them, they look dead. And I just don't feel like it's healthy, and that's one thing that this program taught me. I never in 4 years pulled an all-nighter. I was able to get my work done on time. Good writing skills. Like I've said before, Carolina requires 10 pages of writing per class per semester. So I was constantly writing papers in college. I got to the point that a 5-page paper seemed too short and 2 pages seemed impossible. When I was here in high school, they told us to write a 2-page paper or 3-page paper, and we groaned. We thought it was too long. And anything over that seemed impossible. So writing and writing well is key for college, and that's one thing that this program taught me. Effective note-taking. As I've said before, this goes back to AVID, and that's one of the best things that this program taught me. It taught me how to take a lecture and be able to pull the main points out of it and the main supporting details and write it down, because you're not always going to have a professor that has a PowerPoint laid out with this entire lecture on it. I've had professors walk in a room with a folder full of notes from past classes that they've taught, and they talk for an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half, and you have to write based on that. You don't have anything to look at, and being able to take notes is something that AVID taught me. And also, like, you know, if professors don't have anything to put online to help you, like, what did you learn that day or what did you talk about that day, having notes is key. And also talking to your peers if you miss a class is key. Like, hey, I was out, like, what did I miss? That's also important. Having people that can, like, fill you in on what's going on. And also study techniques. One key to doing well in college is, like, how do you study? What's your learning preference? Are you a visual learner? Are you auditory? Are you kinesthetic? Do you have to play with stuff or, like, see it to learn? Like, how do you learn? And that's one thing that this program taught me. I'm a visual learner, so do you use flashcards? Does rewriting your notes help? Does listening to your lecture again help? What helps you? If you can learn what that is that helps you remember stuff, you'll do much better when it comes to remembering information and taking exams. Me personally, I'm a visual learner, so when I would study, I would do flashcards, lots of color. If I was really short on time, I would just reread my notes over and over and over again. Just looking at them would help. But learn what your strengths are and play to them, because that will help you when it comes to exam time. Because when you have finals week and you've got 5 exams in 3 days, that's when you need it. Okay, so what would I offer advice? What kind of advice would I offer to you? Well, the first thing I would say is don't do everything alone. You guys are in a group. Use that to your benefit. You don't have to do everything by yourself. Talk to your friends, talk to your peers. Get them to help you. Talk to your faculty. Don't try to do everything alone. Talk to people about what you're struggling with, what you're not struggling with. Because when you look back on it, you'll remember those people. You'll remember those conversations, and it'll be a much better experience for all of you. And same thing goes for college. When I think back to my time at Carolina, I say I miss Carolina. I miss the people. I miss the conversations. I miss the memories. And the classes too, but it was the people in the classes that made the experience memorable. Also, ask for help. We live in a society in which, you know, we as individuals are recognized. Our individual accomplishments are awarded, and it's good, but you don't have to do everything alone. And I don't think asking for help is a weakness. I see asking for help as a strength, because you're mature enough to recognize that you need help, and that's important. Ask questions. I've been in school since I was 3, really difficult schools since the past 10 years. I've never heard of a stupid question. There are no stupid questions, in my opinion, and if you ask a question, the worst they can do is say no or not answer. And if they do answer, you have valuable information that you didn't have before. Also, work hard. I know school isn't easy. I've been there. I've done that. I know what it's like. And there will be assignments that you're just like, can I just do anything else? Anything. But do it anyway. Because at the end of the day, your education can't be taken away from you. Once it's yours, and that's it. And also, if you work hard and you get through whatever you get through, at the end you can look back and say, hey, I got through this, 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 and this. And since I got through this, 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 and this, I can do this over here. It's the biggest motivator for anything. If you can overcome obstacles and meet your goals, the sky's the limit, and you can do anything you want. And also, don't give up. I know it's hard. I know that. But like I said, education is worth it because it can't be taken away. Once you have it, it's yours. And education opens up doors to anything you want to do. So just don't give up on your studies, even when it seems impossible. So what was my major at UNC? I was a psychology major with a history minor. I did not start out that way. I started out as a pre-med student with a biology major and a Spanish minor, which is another piece of advice. When you go to college, major in something you love, that you're passionate about. Don't major in what you think you should major in, because it'll lead you to a good job. Because I can tell you, if you have to do something for 4 years that you think you should be doing but you don't really like, it's either gonna be total misery or you're not gonna make it because you're not enjoying what you do. And that's what I learned when I went to Carolina. I started taking science classes and I'm good at them, but I didn't like them. And the professors, that plays a role in it too. If you don't like your professors, that's gonna make an impact. And so that's why I switched majors, and I'm very thankful I did. I figured out what I wanted to do with my life. And you also don't have to know what you want to do the second you step foot on campus. You can experiment and try different things. So if it changes, that's okay too. So what was my UNC experience like? My UNC experience was a bit abnormal. When I went to Carolina, I lost my mother. My mother was my partner in crime. When you saw one, you saw the other. When I came to high school, I hear she's like, "Ooh, Jesse's going to Nash. I might as well go back to school too." So we went to school together. So we were very close, but when I went to school, I lost her. So my experience had hard times, but it had good times. It went back and forth. I could have a good day, I could have a bad day. It just depended. But I came back to Nash for a semester and audited some classes just to keep my head in the game, because I knew my education was important to me, and then I went back to UNC. On that note, Carolina and any university is difficult, but I think it's doable if you have a good support system and you have friends that you can talk to when you've had a bad day or you need help with a problem. That comes in handy, but I feel like it's crucial to have a good support system when you're in school, just so you can talk about your struggles or whatever you're facing at the time. Also, it's very academically challenging. Like, it's challenging here. It's very challenging for me when I was here academically, but college is even a little bit more so. It's just on a different level. And I feel like this program prepared me well for that, but I was still challenged when I went to college. It's not like, oh, I did an associate's degree, I can do this in a breeze. It wasn't like that. It was like, I can do this, but I had to work for it. And finally, on a good note, it was also fun. I met good friends. We had good times. We went out and went to ball games and whatnot and all that good stuff. So, but that's also important. Like, I know it's hard and I know you need to focus on your schoolwork and your grades, but don't go to school and not have fun, and don't go have fun and not do school. Try to find a mixture of both. And this is a picture of, I just wanted to put it up here since I was talking about support. This is a picture of me and some of my family. They moved me in and moved me out of my dorm room for 4 years without fail, and they were one of my biggest support systems. So without them, I probably wouldn't be up here talking to you right now. So what did I do while I was at UNC besides going to class? Well, for the last 2.5 years of my time there, I was a research assistant in a eating disorders and body image lab. We looked at things like body image, self-esteem, how social media plays into that, all kinds of things. Like anything we thought we had a question about, we could probably turn it into a research study. So our job description was basically to do anything that was asked of us. We developed study materials, such as consent forms or debriefing forms. We developed study protocols, like what do you do, how does the study work. We developed surveys. We also helped take participants through the research study and provide feedback on like what's working good, what's working bad, what can we fix, what can we make better. We also had boring, tedious tasks like putting packets together or stapling or labeling folders. But the point was, it taught us teamwork, it taught us communication, it taught us collaboration, and those three things are key anywhere in your life, like whether you're in school, whether you have a job, whatever. Like being able to talk and communicate is really important. And when we weren't doing a lot, we could do our own homework, we could do our own work. So it wasn't just work, work, work. It was like work, work, but if we don't need you, you can do your own thing, which was nice. And that was one of my best experiences at Chapel Hill. Also, I was involved in an honor society called the National Residence Hall Honorary. It recognizes the top 1% of college students that live on campus. You get accepted through applying and interviewing, and you have to fulfill requirements in the areas of leadership, service, scholarship, and recognition. And if you do that for the duration of your time, you get honor cords at graduation. Carolina only has 5 honor societies that do that, so that's quite a big deal. And the last big thing I did was I was involved in an organization called Operation Building Courage. Our main goal was to build Build-A-Bears for sick kids to provide them courage to fight whatever battle they were dealing with. And my main job for that was to act as treasurer. I was responsible for all incoming and outgoing cash and for keeping records of those transactions. And this this Road to Recovery from Eating Disorders, this is the current study that my research group is working on. We're looking at recovery and what defines recovery. So it's a 5-year study, so it's a couple more years before we get any results. But that's really exciting. I did a lot of work like getting that off the ground. So this is just some pictures of like some of my best memories at Chapel Hill, just going out to dinner with friends. This picture here is my research group with all the different RAs, going to Franklin Street. I'll talk about my internship in a little bit, but this was my badge from UNC Family Medicine. I was an intern, going to basketball games and going to football games. Those were my big things that I did to have fun. And like I said, my best memories from UNC, hanging out with friends, going to ball games. I love Duke and state games. They're like the big ones that you really want tickets to. My internship, which I'll talk about in a minute, and just going to places on campus, exploring campus, going on campus, going around campus, just exploring the area. I really enjoyed that. And because of my situation with my mom, a lot of UNC administration and faculty came out to support me, and I developed long-lasting relationships with them. I had a graduation service at home when I came back, and they drove an hour and a half to come see me for that. So that was a key part of my UNC experience as well. So this is my internship. It was a new program. I was a part of the first group that did it. They take 10 to 12 psychology students and place them in real-world situations working with psychology based on your interests. I'm interested in clinical psychology, so I wanted to work in that area with patients. They placed me at the Nicotine Dependence Program. The goal is to help people to quit smoking. They have four sub-programs. They have an outpatient clinic where I worked, a cancer outpatient center, an inpatient unit, and an employee program. I got to go and work in all 4, but my main one was in the outpatient clinic, and there I got to see patients. I got to write notes that went into the UNC healthcare system. I got to make phone calls and just interact with patients on a very personal level and get to know a bit about them and their stories, which I really did enjoy. Let me see. Also, one thing I want to point out here is that's one thing I would encourage you to do when you go off to college. Just look for an internship or look for a part-time job that you can do that's maybe in your area of what you think you want to do, because it'll inform you of, oh, I think I want to work in healthcare. Oh, I think I want to do this over here. And then you can actually go and maybe work in that area in some capacity and say, oh, do I really want to do this? Or actually, I really hate this. What do I want to do? That was the way it was with me and my major. I thought I was going to go one way, and I got there, and it was like, actually, you're going to go this way over here. So just try different things out and see what you're interested in, and see what you're interested in that's actually aligned with what you enjoy. So my future plans and career goals. My future plans, I want to go back to grad school. I applied to grad school last semester before I graduated. I applied to ECU in Carolina for rehabilitation counseling. That's a program that works with people who has disabilities or either physical or mental, and it helps them have independent and functional lifestyles. I feel like with my physical condition, I could have a good impact on that population, and so that's where I want my work to be, because when I started Carolina, I wanted to help people, and that's the same as it is now. I still want to help people. So that's what I'm doing right now. I would hopefully like to work in a healthcare setting because I just really enjoy that environment. And a PhD is not out of my range. I hadn't decided yet. We'll see what happens. So that's in the future too. And that's just what I'm planning to do right now. I've been accepted at ECU to go to Greenville in August and start their master's program. And I've interviewed Carolina, and hopefully they'll email me back in the next few days. So I'm still waiting to hear from them. But if I have a choice, I'll hopefully be returning to Chapel Hill in August to get my master's degree. So that's all I have. Well, that's all I formally have, but I'm open for questions.
Do you have any questions for Jess?
Mm-hmm.
What's my question to you? How long, okay, so you say you got your bachelor's, how long, you said it took, how long years?
I took 4 years, because when you come here, since you're doing it in high school, the university see you as a freshman when you come. So I had 4 years at my disposal to do 2 years worth of work, which was nice because that meant I didn't have to overload and take 15 or 18 credit hours, and that was fine. I mean, it would just depend on you, but that's what I chose to do, especially with, losing my mom and all that came with it. Like, I couldn't handle a large class load, so I took 4 years, but I could have graduated a semester early or a year early, but I wanted my minor, and I got accepted into my internship, and so I had to go back for that.
What was your GPA when you left college?
4.5. That was weighted. My unweighted was around, that was with college, but unweighted it was close to a 4.0.
Any questions about expectations for going into four-year university?
So when you went into UNC, what were the most important things that they were sort of looking for, at least that you had or knew that you needed
Do you mean like classwork wise, or do you mean to like be accepted?
to be accepted?
That's a hard question to answer. I know a lot of us, when you're applying to school, like you're like, what do they want? What do they want? But I've learned there might be certain things that they want, but there's no one formula that says if you do this plus this plus this plus this, you'll get in. They want you to have a good GPA. They want you to have relatively good test scores, but I think mine were below average, so you don't have to be average or above average to get in. And I think they just want to see some extracurriculars and, that you're hardworking and good letters of recommendation. Like, they just want to know, all they want to know, in my opinion, is that you will be a student that will work hard and reflect well on them. And you want to like the school too. It's like a two-way street. They have to like you and you have to like them. But I think all universities are looking for are good students that work hard and they want to make a difference in the world. That's where like the essays come in, because I remember when I applied to Carolina, one of the questions was like, if you got into Carolina's a huge research university, they're like, what would you research? And I believe I talked about, my disability and how I wanted to use that to help others. So they just want to see that you'll take your talents and your abilities and use it to help the community around you, because that's all. Carolina's big on like the Carolina way and like helping the community. So I think that's really like the best I can answer that question for you. Is that okay?
Yeah. Another question I have is, okay, once you got you got in, so that was the check. it's like, how much did it cost per semester to be there? Like, how did you go through about, I guess, paying for school?
Well, I filled out the FAFSA. That's your first step. And then UNC requires a second thing. It's called the CSS Profile through College Board. You have to fill that out. And I had applied for scholarships on my own, like just outside stuff. I got about $10,000 for the first year, but most of it wasn't renewable. And a lot of schools, like for undergrads that have, financial issues, they've got money there. That's where my scholarship came from. I couldn't pay for school, not easily. And so UNC paid for it because they knew that I had potential, and they knew that, if I was given the opportunity, I would do well. So that's where most of mine came from, because if it hadn't been for that, then I wouldn't have been able to go. But a lot of universities have like lots of grants, scholarships, and things that they can use for students that need help.
Any other questions? Any questions about how she chose her internship, or any additional questions? She told you some information about her experience with her internship.
How did you get into research? Like just in the college?
That's a good question. I had a professor, I had her twice, and pretty much at Carolina, like every professor does research. Like it's just a given. Like every professor in some form mostly does research. And she would always talk about her research, and at the time I thought I wanted to go into clinical psychology, which is a PhD program, and grad school wants to see research. Like that's just a given. When you apply to grad school, they want to see research. So I knew I didn't know if I was going to med school. I didn't know if I was going to grad school at the time. But I knew research was good to have, and I wanted to do that. And so since I'd had 2 classes with her, and she'd always talked about her research, I knew her well. And the saying, "It's not what you know, it's who you know." That's a big thing. Like networking plays a huge role in what you get. Huge role. Because she had me in 2 classes. She knew what student I was. She knew I did my work on time. She knew I was hardworking. And so she was taking 2 students that semester. And she's told us, like most of the time when she takes new students, it's students she's had because she knows them. So that's how I got involved in it.
Okay, so say we go to college and we got like our future plans on what we're gonna do, but we go to the college and we decide to change our major. Like what do we have to do?
To change your major? Go to well, I can't speak for anybody but Carolina, but go to academic advising and say, hey, I want to change my major. After you get past sophomore year, it gets to be a little bit more tricky because you don't have enough time to, depending on if you have credits or not, you don't have enough time to start over on a major. But at Carolina, they give you until the end of your second year to declare a major. You can be undecided for 2 years before you decide. But if you declare a major, like for psych, you almost have to declare just to get into a class to see if you like it. So that's what I had to do. But then if you don't like it, you can just go back and say, hey, I want to do this, and they'll change it. For the longest time, I was a double major with biology and psychology, and it was just up there. I wasn't a biology major, it just said I was. And so I just went into the office and said, hey, can you take this off? And they did, and that was it.
Exactly. For most universities, you're assigned an academic advisor, so you will see that person or somebody in that office.
Yeah. And they assign you based on your interests. Like there's kind of different areas. Like there's the science and math, and there's social sciences, so they're kind of divided up. So they place you with somebody based on what you're interested in.
The first few weeks that you was there, you had to, I guess, the excitement of starting school. Just simply, how was just the first week of being away from home? Because was you away before you actually went to college?
Yeah, Chapel is about an hour and a half from home. I came back my first semester, but then when I went back to Chapel, it was really hard. I came home every weekend, it happened every weekend. And if it didn't, I was very depressed. But once you learn to, once you like make friends and you're involved in stuff, and a lot of that stuff happens on the weekends because everybody's too busy during the week to do it a lot during the week. You know, you have stuff to do on the weekends, and it makes it much easier to stay. But advice I gave earlier was like when you're first starting out and you don't really have any friends, get out and walk around campus. You know, meet people. You know, try to hook up with like some freshmen in your dorm wherever you're living, because I can guarantee you they're probably just as lost and homesick as you, and y'all can kind of learn it together. And some of my best friends now that I keep in close contact with are those people that we learned it together. We were freshmen together and we learned it together, and it just creates kind of a bond, and that helped a lot.
Any other questions?
What was your experience with your roommate? Did you like know her, or was it random?
That one I can't give you a lot of information about because of needing a walker, and Carolina provided me a scooter because it's so huge to get around. I lived by myself. I had like neighbors that lived right next door, and I would hang out with them, but when it came to living with somebody, I never did. I've heard great stories, I've heard horror stories, and I've heard, you know, stories where you random and it's like great, and you've had stories where they lived with their best friend and it was awful. So, you know, I've just kind of heard all over, but for me, I never really had that experience because I lived by myself.
Was it extra to live? Like, was it extra money to live by yourself?
I don't think so, because mine was a medical reason versus I just don't want to live with anyone. So I think it was just like your regular, like what you would normally pay.
Like where you stayed at, was there like a whole big area of places that people stayed by themselves, or like did you stay, was it still in a dorm, or I mean how did it work?
I stayed in a dorm and I had my own room, so I had people all around me, and we had a communal bathroom and a communal kitchen, and office. Like everybody said that my dorm was the nicest one on campus, which I believe because I stayed there for 4 years. It was pretty awesome. But you know, I can't speak for like the ones that had more freshmen in it, because of where I was located. It was more upperclassmen, but it just depends on where you put. That kind of defines your living experience, and you know, based off of that, you can decide every year, like, do you want to stay here? Do you want to move to this dorm? Do you want to be closer to friends? You know, you can just decide. But in my experience, a lot of people freshman and sophomore year lived on campus, and then after sophomore year, junior and senior year, they're more likely to go get an apartment with friends or house. So it just depends on like if you like where you're staying or what you want.
Did you find a difference in like your classes from when you took college classes at Nash to Carolina?
Yeah. That's a hard question to answer. The biggest difference is like, okay, this is one of the bigger classrooms that I remember from Nash. Like one of the bigger ones. Except for maybe that big room in D building, but you can divide that up so it's still kind of small. But at Carolina, I'd have classes with 300 or 400 people in it. Like you were just a number. And the only way you really got to know your professor is if you took the initiative and went to your office hours and said, hey, how are you? My name is so-and-so. And, you know, had a conversation. Also, the writing is out of this world. Like I said, I went from writing 2 or 3 page papers to being expected to write 10 pages a class per semester. So I was writing anywhere from 40 to 50 pages of work every semester, and that threw me for a loop. That was a big difference. And just like here, it's like A, B, C, D. That's the scale. Carolina, it's A minus, B plus, B minus, and that difference between that B and B minus or B plus, it affects your GPA. So you're fighting for every, like if you want to keep your GPA up, you're fighting for every 10th of a point or whatever, so you can keep your GPA up. So it's definitely much harder, and you have to be more cognizant of like making sure you get everything in on time and all that kind of stuff. And if you're having trouble turning work in on time, or if you have things going on, talk to your professors. One thing I learned in orientation is like, they're like, if you have 3 exams in a week and you come to us and be like, hey, can I move this exam? We're going to be like, no, figure it out. But like I've had experiences where I've had stuff going on with family, or I've had a lot of exams, and I've talked to my professor. I'm like, hey, look, it's not that I'm being lazy. It's just I've got all this stuff going on that I wasn't expecting. Can you help me out? And more often than not, if you're a good student and you go to class and you pay attention, they'll give you an extension. I remember one time I did that for a paper, and the professor was nice enough to give me the weekend to finish it. So that's a big piece of advice, is talk to your professors.
I don't know if this is a comment or a question, but like at college, like say you just don't do something, they're not gonna like run after you.
No. They do not do that at all. You either do it or you don't do it, and if you don't do it, that's on you, not them. And if you miss class, you need to talk to a peer or a friend or somebody and get the notes, because that's on you, not them. So you have to be responsible for yourself.
About the 10 pages per semester per class,
Mhm.
is that for all classes, including like science and math classes?
Yes, that comes in the form of lab reports. Math, I'm not so sure what they do. I think that's a little bit more lenient, but I didn't take a math class at Carolina, so I can't. But yeah, for most, it's like 10. And it can be like an 8 to 10 page paper. It can be 2 5-page papers. It can be 5 2-page papers. It can be 10 1-page papers. It don't really matter. Just as long as you get around 10 pages, you're good. But that was something that was unique to Carolina, because one of my professors was telling about the college that she taught at before Carolina. It was like if the student was honor student, then they had to like do extra writing per class, and that's what made them an honor student. At Carolina, that wasn't extra. That was just what was expected.
When there were important class announcements, how did your professors contact you?
Email, or we had a site called Sykes. It's kind of like Blackboard. It kind of replaced Blackboard, and they would put announcements on Sykes, and more often than not, then it would be hooked up so that the announcement got emailed to your email too, so you got it twice. And sometimes, a lot of times, they would even put it, if they were in class, they would announce it in class, so you got it plenty of times. You just had to pay attention to get it. But the main form of communication was email. I checked my email many times a day.
Many times.
Many times.
Okay.
I did take a night class. I took one not a year before I graduated in the spring. It was 5 to 7:30 at night. Not my favorite, but it was worth it. The hardest thing was figuring out when you were going to eat dinner.
So do you have classes on Fridays?
Yes.
Was it just labs or?
It could be anything. Carolina, you have Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesday, Thursday. It's not like here where you have like Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday for an hour and a half. Or that's how it was when I was here sometimes. But most of the time you have classes on Friday. The only time I didn't have class on Friday was the semester before I graduated.
My question is, okay, I went to Nicotine for medical field, and we only ate in one dining hall. Do they have more than one dining hall?
They have two.
They have two. And does it work by a card or?
Yes. If you get a meal plan, they put it on your like student ID card, and when you go to the dining hall, you give them your student ID card, and they swipe it, and it takes a meal off. Which one?
I went to, let's see,
Rams Head?
it was the one by the stadium.
Rams Head. But yes, there's another one at the other end of campus, so there's two.
Yeah, I never went that one.
Are you thinking about going to Carolina? Okay.
For your lecture classes, did you have any teachers that kind of just zoomed through the information? And if you did, how did you kind of get over like all of the information coming to you kind of in that short amount of time very quickly?
Yes, I did. And two answers to that question. One is see if you have any friends in the class, or if you don't, talk to your neighbor, and that way you can collaborate. So if you miss something, they might have it. And another thing I learned to do, is professors, especially in big classes, they don't know what you're doing, which sounds horrible, but I mean, they're not gonna mind if you record lecture. So you can record, I would take my iPad to class and record lecture, and then if I missed something, I could go back and listen to it at my own pace, and I would get it that way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anything that you would change about your experience?
Yeah, my first 2 years I was pretty class heavy, and I didn't have a lot of as much of a social life because I was pretty heavy into the books, which worked out, I guess, in my favor because towards the end I was able to have fun and not worry so much about classes. But if I had to go back and change anything, it would definitely be that I would try to make a little bit more of a social life, because that was pretty much all I did my first 2 years. I got into my activities the end of my sophomore year and kept going from there. So if I had to change anything, I would do that. But at the same time, you don't want to do the opposite and where you have fun the first 2 years, because that's kind of laying the groundwork. And so if you have a solid GPA and a solid foundation, it makes it easier for your junior and senior year when you're in your major classes to maintain that and to have a social life. So, it's kind of a balance, but if I had to change something, I would try to have a little bit more fun.
We'll take a few more questions. Deja?
I promise it's my last one.
No, it's fine. I like it.
Okay. So, how you say, is it common, I know you had a special situation, so is it common for you to get your bachelor's degree in 4 years, or is it just not common? And if you do it that way, how many classes will you have per semester?
Well, a bachelor normally takes 4 years in general.
Okay.
So, the fact that I did it in 4 years is not that uncommon. The fact that I did it in 4 years and I had a 2-year degree is a little bit different. But, I had that freedom and I chose to do that. But if you take a few classes and you don't have an associate's or you don't have a lot of credits, it's not uncommon to take anywhere from 15 to 18 credit hours a semester. 15, if you don't have anything, 15 a semester is 30 a year, and 30 times 4 is 120, which is what is required for bachelor's. So if you don't have anything, the minimum is 15. The worst I took was 17. I said I'd never do it again, and the least I took was about 12. So I had a range.
Anyone else? That's an excellent question.
Did you ever work outside all this, or did you just sort of use your internship and your research?
Those were my jobs. And I didn't have a car, so if, getting back and forth, that's something else to consider. College campuses, I'm finding parking is at a premium. So if you can find something on campus to do, where you don't have to drive a lot, that was kind of what I did. And it also depends on what you're taking. If you feel like you can handle a job on top of your classes, just depends on what your situation is and what you feel like you can do.
Any other questions before we close out? want to thank you. Let's give Jessie a hand. Thank you